Looking at Job chapter 15, and this is our second conversation by our good friend Eliphaz, the Temanite, and he's going to have some more things to say to Job. Now Eliphaz has already talked once, and he shared some things, and he's got some more to share. And Eliphaz is a little upset with Job because he didn't like what Job said to his statement earlier, nor does he like what Job said to the other two, Bildad and Zophar. So now Eliphaz has got some more that he wants to say, and he's going to get a little bit more testy with his conversation. So let's take a listen to see what Eliphaz here has got to say. Job chapter 15.
Should a wise man utter vain knowledge, and fill his belly with the east wind? Should he reason with unprofitable talk, or with speeches wherewith he can do no good? Yea, thou castest off fear, and restrainest prayer before God. For thy mouth uttereth thine iniquity, and thou choosest the tongue of the crafty. Thine own mouth condemneth thee, and not I. Yea, thine own lips testify against thee. Art thou the first man that was born? Or wast thou made before the hills? Hast thou heard the secret of God? And dost thou restrain wisdom to thyself? What knowest thou that we know not? What understandest thou which is not in us? With us are both the grey-headed and very aged men, much elder than thy father. Are the consolations of God small with thee? Is there any secret thing with thee? Why doth thine heart carry thee away? And what do thy eyes wink at, that thou turnest thy spirit against God, and lettest such words go out of thy mouth? What is man, that he should be clean? And he which is born of a woman, that he should be righteous? Behold, he putteth no trust in his saints. Yea, the heavens are not clean in his sight. How much more abominable and filthy is man, which drinketh iniquity like water? I will shew thee, hear me. And that which I have seen I will declare, which wise men have told from their fathers, and have not hid it, unto whom alone the earth was given, and no stranger passed among them. The wicked man travaileth with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden to the oppressor. A dreadful sound is in his ears. In prosperity the destroyer shall come upon him. He believeth not that he shall return out of darkness, and he is waited for of the sword. He wandereth abroad for bread, saying, Where is it? He knoweth that the day of darkness is ready at his hand. Trouble and anguish shall make him afraid. They shall prevail against him as a king ready to the battle. For he stretcheth out his hand against God, and strengtheneth himself against the Almighty. He runneth upon him, even on his neck, upon the thick bosses of his bucklers. Because he covereth his face with his fatness, and maketh collops of fat on his flanks. And he dwelleth in desolate cities, and in houses which no man inhabiteth, which are ready to become heaps. He shall not be rich, neither shall his substance continue, neither shall he prolong the perfection thereof upon the earth. He shall not depart out of darkness. The flame shall dry up his branches, and by the breath of his mouth shall he go away. Let not him that is deceived trust in vanity, for vanity shall be his recompense. It shall be accomplished before his time, and his branch shall not be green. He shall shake off his unripe grape as the vine, and shall cast off his flower as the olive. For the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate, and fire shall consume the tabernacles of bribery. They conceive mischief, and bring forth vanity, and their belly prepareth deceit.
Chapter 15.
All right. So there we go with chapter 15. And you can see Eliphaz is got a lot of information that he wants to share with Job. And like we had said in each one of these conversations are no different than when we have a conversation with someone from your job, or someone from your neighborhood, or family members, or friends. When you have disagreements and when you have grievances and situations where you don't see eye to eye. And so this is very similar. This is a situation here. But what makes this different is that what the conversation is about God. They're trying to get a notion as to how God thinks, which is the first problem. All right, we don't know how God thinks. All we know is what God reveals, and that's an important thing to keep in mind. There are many secrets to God, and there are many facets to Him that we can't comprehend, nor can we observe. Our knowledge is like being in a square room. You can walk from one wall to another, but eventually you hit a point where you can't go any further, and the physics of that wall stopped you from traveling in that direction. And that's how our knowledge is. Our knowledge can take us to a certain point, but then we hit a wall. And you say, well, what is that wall? That wall could be a lot of things. It can be what seems to be contradictions to us. And it may be a contradiction to our logic, but it doesn't stop God. It may be things that seem illogical or not possible from our understanding and from our ability to know things. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't go further when it comes down to the understanding and the wisdom of God. And always understanding that. And that's why we often talk about and we say you have to have faith in God, because our logic can only take us, and our knowledge and our science and all that stuff, which is good, and we need it. You use logic and reason and common sense every day, and you need to use it. But it can only take you but so far. It can't take you past that wall of comprehension and understanding that we know of. God can. His faith can take you further than what you can possibly think or dream or hope for. And so that's important to keep in mind. So when we look at Eliphaz here, this is Eliphaz the Temanite, and he says, should the wise man utter vain knowledge? So he's right there again, talking about Job, who he considered to be wise at one time, but now he's looking at him as one that is talking vain knowledge. And fill his belly with the east wind. Well, we see this again. This is about the second or third time somebody called Job a windbag. It's just saying that your belly, which is, when you suck in air to speak, you're just blowing out wind. Basically what that means is wind has very little direction and purpose. Wind just goes wherever it's going to go. And so what Eliphaz is saying to Job, your conversation has no purpose. Your conversation is just words that are going out. They have no target. They have no product to fulfill. They have no aim. And so he's just calling him a windbag. Look at verse 3. He says, should he reason with unprofitable talk? Just another way of saying your words have no profit. They have no gain. They have no means in which you can find something that you can say, okay, that has helped. That has done made me better. To profit is to be better than what you were previously financially. Well, there's profit in wisdom, profit in knowledge. But what Eliphaz is saying that to Job is your wisdom and your reasoning is not profitable. You're talking about a bunch of stuff and you're gaining nothing. You're just losing. And nobody seems to feel comfortable when you feel like you're in that kind of situation. Well, Eliphaz is telling Job, that's how I see what you're doing. So you can see how he's working on Job now, trying to get Job to understand how he sees Job. Now, keeping this in mind, none of these guys see this correctly. So as we go through this conversation and we get in Eliphaz's perspective and Eliphaz's point of view, keeping in mind, none of these points of view from any of these guys is correct. Each one of them is coming from their own stereotypical point of view, their own I'll just use the word selfish for the lack of a better word, but their own personal, that's probably a better word, their own personal reasoning, not understanding that God has real reasons for why this is happening. And we get it from the very beginning, from that very first 2 chapters. God told us why this was happening. But these guys don't have the benefit of having that information. So they're talking strictly from their own personal wisdom and their own personal experience. which means that they're going to say some things that are probably accurate and can be applied in the proper circumstance and proper situation, and they're going to say some things that are totally wrong, and then even some of the things that they're saying right are right but misapplied. Okay, so that's what we see here. So he's saying your reasoning is unprofitable talk, and your speech, he says, wherewith he can do no good. He says your speech is doing nothing. You're talking, but you're not making any good progress. So Eliphaz, like I said, he's going to get a little tougher, but this is what he's saying to Job. Look at verse 4. Yea, thou castest off fear and refrain prayer before God. So what he's saying is you have no more reverence to God, and you're not praying to God. So now he's basically saying that, you know, his consecration to God has become anathema. It's becoming a point where he is no longer seeking God, and that's why, from Eliphaz's point of view, Job is speaking a bunch of unprofitable and unproductive talk. And he's now telling Job, and let me tell you why. So not only does he know from his perspective, keep in mind, that Job is saying something that is useless, he's now telling Job why his stuff is useless. Because you don't reverence God, and you don't, and you're not praying before him. All right. Now that's what Eliphaz thinks. All right. But once again, he's not correct. He doesn't know. And the thing we want to keep in mind, we often talk about how does this relate to Jesus? Because all of this goes back to him. If you remember when Jesus walked the earth, how many different times did the religious leaders of his day, the so-called people that were instructing the people at the time that Jesus was on earth, come to Jesus and say things about him that were untrue? They said that Jesus was a wine bibbler. They said he was a friend of sinners and unprofitable. They said Jesus was a sinner because he didn't keep the Sabbath day. They said so many things about him because they were looking at Jesus from their own points of view. Well, this is what's going on in this entire book of Job. Everybody's got their own point of view and refuse to recognize that that's my view. That does not mean it's correct. Can I find truth? And that's what we search for. I don't want people to know what I think. I want to know the truth. And so if I can help people find truth, not find ways that you can agree with me, but find truth. And that's what they are lacking here. And that's what they're not doing. Everybody thinks their points of view are superior to the other person's point of view. All right, look at verse 5. For thou mouth uttereth thine iniquities, and thou chooseth the tongue of the crafty. So he's saying, when you're talking, your mouth is talking about iniquity. Iniquity is secret sin. So what Eliphaz is saying, Job, you're talking and you're trying to talk around your iniquity. In other words, you're trying to talk around your secret stuff that you're doing in the dark, in the shadows, and in the corners. You're talking around that. And Eliphaz is saying, I know that's what's happening. Now, from the backstory, we know that is not happening. We know that that's not the reason why this happened to Job. But Eliphaz, in his reasoning, he has to come up with a thing that makes sense to him as to why this is happening to his friend. And that's what he says. And then he says, and thou chooses thy tongue is of crafty. So he's saying that, once again, a crafty individual is a person that can manipulate and maneuver in things that are not always straight, honest, and forthwith. So sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you're saying something, but what you're saying is not a sense of like, I'm trying to bring all the truth to what we're doing. A lot of times they're bringing things that seemingly seem to be truth, but are not. All right. So as we continue now, chapter 15, verse 6, he says, thine own mouth condemneth thee. So you can see his consistent conversation about Job's conversation, talk about his mouth, his tongue, his words, all of it. He's just saying, Job, all of your conversational habits are corrupt. He says, thy own mouth condemneth thee, and not I. So he's saying, I'm not the one saying this, but in reality, he is. He's the one, because this is what Eliphaz's point of view is. He thinks this of Job. And he's using, and in a minute, Eliphaz is going to try to give a credence or evidence for why he's saying these things. And his evidence is going to be what people consider to be evidence in that day. Oddly enough, it's still what people consider to be evidence today. And we'll point that out in just a bit. All right. And so he says, thine own mouth condemneth thee, and not I. Yea, thy own lips testify against thee. He's just continuing to say that. Verse 7. Art thou the first man that was born? So now he's now asking Job a what you would call a straw man question. It's a question in which you know the answer to. It's a rhetorical question, and it's a question to make him look like or put him in a situation where what he's about to say after that, this question helps solidify it. So it's a straw man question. So he says, well, you're the first man born. Well, the answer to that is, of course not. He's not the first man born. And it says, and was thou made before the hills? Basically, if he said, were thou made before the hills? In other words, are you older than the earth? Are you older than the dirt and the rocks? You know, sometimes people tease each other and say, well, this guy is old as dirt. Well, this is what Eliphaz is asking. Were you here? Do you know all? Did you experience everything that the earth has ever had? So he's trying to bring Job down to a point where he can get Job, from his perspective, to feel like maybe there are some things I don't know. And to a degree, that is a proper mindset to have. We all should have that. We all should be at a stage where I feel I still have a lot that I need to learn. But Eliphaz is doing that mainly so Eliphaz can take the place where he's telling Job to get down from. Job, you get down from that high horse thing, and that all your conversation, all your words, all your lips, and all your mouth speeches are right. Get down. Your words are not right. And when you get down from saying all these words, guess what? I'm going to get back where you are, and I'm going to say what I got to say. But wait a minute, Eliphaz, time out. What makes you any different than Job? Now, that's from what we can see here from as we go through this. But one of the things we recognize is that each one of these individuals feel that their conversation is superior to the other person's conversation. Therefore, you never come to a reconciliation, and you're not looking for truth. You're looking for validation of your word. Somebody will validate you if they can witness to what you're saying. And they can say, oh, I got you there. I see that. Or I can understand it. Or I can see it. And sometimes you can validate somebody who you have confidence in. I don't understand it. I've never experienced it. I'm not sure what's going on. But I know you. And because I know you, I'm going to stand with your words. There's a lot of ways that we can do that. Well, we do that with God. There's no way we can understand or know or say we've experienced everything that God has to experience. We just can't do that. But we know God. So therefore, we can stand on what he says, though I can't witness to everything he talks about. I can witness to some of it, but definitely not all of it. All right. So Eliphaz goes on. And he in verse 8 of chapter 15, he says, hast thou heard the secret of God? Well, once again, Eliphaz is asking rhetorical questions. Do you know the secret things that only God knows? Once again, the answer is no. All right. Does thou restrain wisdom to thyself? In other words, are you the only one that has wisdom, and nobody else can speak things like you? Rhetorical. Once again, he's trying to make Job feel like your words. He's basically trying to stomp down on the conversations that Job's had previously and say, your words mean nothing to me. This is what Eliphaz is doing. But he's using this conversation to tell Job why I am not taking any of your conversation to heart. I'm going to stomp it and push it down. Then I'm going to give you my conversation. Well, that's just replacement debate. I'm going to knock you down so I can stand when you're standing. You see, that's not helping. You don't gain anything from that because all you do is continue the debate. What you should be doing is looking, can we find truth? Can we find out what we do know? And even just as important, and sometimes more important, can we find out what we don't know? We don't know this, we don't know that. Knowing what you don't know is important because at least you can understand, well, if me and you are talking about this, we know that none of us have the true, honest answer. All we have is opinion. And that's important to keep in mind until greater truth or greater reality is shared or given. All right. Where we're at, verse 9. What knowest thou that we don't know? So what he's saying, you're not smarter than me, Job. Now we done seen each of them kind of use this phraseology. Job used that on Bildad. Job told Bildad, I know what you're saying. You're not telling me nothing new. The things that you're talking about, I know about that. And so each one of them used very similar arguments and very similar debates to try to knock each other off of the pillar that they're trying to get onto, rather than them all agreeing to stand off the high horse and try to find a way to put God there. Now, keeping in mind, we clearly get it from their perspective and from their time. They didn't have the teachings of Jesus like we have, where we can clearly say, I know where to put this. I got to put the Lord on the top, put his conversation there, and see what I can glean from that. They're trying to put their own wisdom. Now, Eliphaz is going to explain, as I said earlier, why he thinks he's got the true answer. And you're going to see what he has to say in just a minute to identify himself as the one this should be listened to. All right. It goes, what understanding thou which is not in us? And so what kind of understanding do you have that we don't have? Are you more intelligent? You got a higher IQ? You got a quicker or smarter brain? Are you more of a superhuman than I am? No, we're all got the same thing. So he says, but yet he's going to push himself a little high. Look at verse 10. So look at Eliphaz's reasoning why he should be listened to. Look what he says. With us, so he's talking about with him and with Bildad and with Zophar. With us are both the gray-haired and the very aged men, much elder than thy father. So he's saying, well, with us, we have historical, traditional, aged teaching that was passed down to us by our great-great-grandfathers, our grandfathers, our fathers. That's what we're standing with. I'm going with what was traditionally taught. So Eliphaz's first evidence as to why you should listen to me, Job, is because I'm not speaking about myself. I'm speaking from things that the older generations and the older men and the older fathers and the older elders all talked about. Now, that Eliphaz is doing actually several things to help pat himself on the back. Number one, he's making the assumption that he is conveying what his past generation said correctly. That he's not
make it right.
He is, and he's assuming that he got it correct and he's got it right. He's making the assumption that I understand what they were saying, and that you don't. And so once again, he's trying to say all of these people, but what he's doing, he's bringing up people that can't correctly say, yes, Eliphaz is correct. Why? Because those elder and ancient people are what? Are dead. They're no longer there. So he's pulling in ghosts and old time spiritual things that he's assuming they agree with me. Well, wait a minute. How do you know they agree with that? They're dead and gone. Just because they were here and they said a certain, how do I know they see things the way you see it? So he's trying to bring forth the historical and the ancient as saying they're on my side, Job, and not on your side. But the historical and the ancient can't, at this point, testify for themselves. So Eliphaz is trying to testify for them. All right, but that's a very common sometimes argument that we can do. We want to try to get some backing for what we want to believe. We don't want to just say what we say, but I want you to understand, it ain't just me that's saying this. Uncle Joe said that, and Grandpa Smith said that, and Aunt, Josie said it, and so we got all these other names that we're going to throw out that aren't there to help solidify. It's an old argument tactic that people can use, but that's what's happening here. This is what this book of Job is all about. How people go back and forth with all that debating and arguing and struggling, and they use all these different tactics. But when it's all said and done, what you need to do is just find out what God says, and that is what you do through prayer and through seeking Him. This book's got a lot of conversation in it, and all of it is just back and forth. When we get to the very last parts of the book, we're going to find out that God's going to say, now why don't you just pray? Which is what but you see all this effort. Look at all that we've been going through week after week after week, listening to these debates and discussions and rhetoric that these individuals are having with Job. And it speaks to what we do. We can speak ad nauseum, just back and forth, going here and there, trying to explain what we think we know. And oftentimes, we're not hitting the right mark. All right. Look at verse 11. Are the consolation of God small with thee? So he's saying, are things in which God actually deals with, do you not take that serious? So now he's saying you're not really taking God serious. So now accusation gets in. And man, when we get into arguments and debates, can we make accusations about people, and so no different. This has happened thousands and thousands of years ago. Same strategies. Is there any secret thing with thee? So he's saying now, because he already talked about him walking in iniquity, which we talked about earlier, and that's walking in secret sin. So now he's asking Job kind of distinctly, is there any secret thing with you? All right. Do you got something to hide? And that's really the crux of their argument for all three of these guys. They believe Job has done something that he's not confessing to, and that's why Job is going through this trial. We know from the backstory, from their part of the spiritual side, that they don't know. That's not why it's happening. But they feel it has to be, because that's how their theology works. That's how they work and relate to God. I do good, I get wonderful things. I do bad, I get bad things. And that's their concept. Not knowing that you can trust in God and still have difficulty. And you can be a hater of God and have some good days. But they don't see it that way. All right? But what we do know is that no one gets away. So you may have a wonderful life on earth, but you're going to deal with it eternally. See, you're going to have to... Their thinking works in a broader sense, but it don't always work in the narrow composite of earthly life. It doesn't always work out that way. So you're going to have it rain on both the good and the bad. You're going to see some good people suffer, and you're going to see some bad people seem to get over and to do well. Keep in mind, God keeps wonderful records. Nobody is going to get overcharged, and nobody's going to get undercharged. Everybody's going to get what they deserve. And what we've come to understand is we don't want what we deserve. I don't want what I deserve. I want God's grace, mercy, and forgiveness. That's why I'm taking on the righteousness of Jesus. I take on Him so that I can then stand before God with what Jesus did. And I can then say, okay, it ain't because of me. It's because of Jesus. It's because of His righteousness that he willingly imputes unto me and unto you and anyone that comes to him. He says, whoever comes to me, I will in no wise cast out. All right. So look, verse 12. Why doest thy heart carry thee away? So he's talking about the heart. The Bible says that the heart of man is deceitfully wicked. So what he's saying is that your fleshly appetites, Job, your heart has carried you away. You've done something. Right? His accusation. What do thy eyes wink at? So once again, your heart got something, an appetite, a desire. Your eyes have seen something that you're hungering and thirsting and lusting for. Eliphaz is letting them know, I know you've done something, Job. All right. Well, once again, from the backstory, we know that's not true. So Eliphaz is barking up a tree that is totally the wrong tree. It's not the right situation. It's not the right circumstances. But from his point of view, he feels it has to be. This has to be what's going on. Then he would be like, well, what could it be then? Well, he doesn't know. And that's why I say we can hit a wall of logic. From us, it don't seem like, well, there's no other answer. But there's always more answers because God understands things way more than what we understand. And when we hit our walls of logic, God has way more opportunity that he can move forward with that type of understanding that we can't do. Verse 13. That thou turneth thy spirit against God. Wow, look at that accusation. So what did your heart look at? What did your eyes wink at? They cause you to turn your spirit against God. And let such words come out of your mouth. And then have this kind of conversation that you're having. And then 14, he says, what is man that he should be clean? Oh, look at that. What is man that he should be clean? Well, guess what? Man can't be clean. We can't cleanse ourselves, which is why we need Jesus to be our cleanser. We need the blood of Jesus to wash away our sin. All right. He says, and he which is born of a woman, that he should be righteous. No one that's born of a woman is righteous, except for the one that was born immaculately, and that was Jesus. The scripture says that we're all born in sin, shaped in iniquity. All right, and so therefore his statement here has truth, but once again he's what? Applying it incorrectly. 16. How much more abominable and filthy is man? So he says, look at how his thing about can man be clean, and he's answering his own question. Look at how filthy man is. Which drinketh iniquity like water. Man hungers to do wrong. Our natural appetite, if it's not checked, if our natural appetite is not brought in, we can lust for all kinds of stuff that can cause all kinds of problems and is all against all kinds of directions from what the Lord would want us to do. If we allow ourselves to just go after our own lust. And everything that pops in our mind and our hearts to do, and don't pull it under subjection, we're going to be in a problem. So we have to govern our thinking. All right, we have to tame our thoughts. All right, 17. I will show thee. Hear me. So now, look at Eliphaz. I'm going to show you. Listen to me. And that which I have seen, I will declare. So here he is. Now he's already talked about. He's already got what? The wise men, the ancient, the historical situations on his side. He's going to give now more proof for why you should listen to him. Look what he says. 18. Which wise men have taught from their fathers. Okay, he's going back to the ancient folks, and have not hid. Upon whom alone the earth was given, and no stranger passeth among them. So he's saying from the time the earth was started, the wisdom that I'm talking to you is the same kind of wisdom that people have been talking about from generation to generation to generation. Well, in a sense that's somewhat true, but also can be extremely wrong. All right. there was a time when people would teach that the earth was flat, and people are talking about that even nowadays. Now, you got the flat earth theory and all that kind of stuff. But and then they say, well, no, it's the earth is round, and they said, well, the earth revolves around the sun, and then they said, nope, the sun revolves around. The sun revolves around the earth. And when they say no, now the earth revolves around the sun. So there's all kinds of different things that people have learned or taught of old that we find later on is not true. Look at our situation in nutrition. Is coffee good for you or is it bad for you? Is it good to eat eggs or not good to eat eggs? Is bacon healthy or not healthy? So everything gets tossed around. Everybody comes up with new theories and new ideas. All right, and before you know it, we find that some of the stuff we used to believe are old is not really that accurate. We got to make some adjustments and some changes. All right, verse 19. Upon whom alone the earth has given, and no stranger passeth among them. Look at 20. And says, the wicked man travaileth with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden to the oppressor. All right. So what he's saying now, there's some evidence about how he thinks. Wicked men travail in pain all his days. Well, that certainly can be true, but that's no law. There's a lot of wicked people that prosper on the earth. So what he's trying to do is make justification for what he feels is right. And it seems that should be true. It should be true that wicked people don't prosper. That's how we want to believe. But that's not true, not on earth. Now, when it comes down to dealing with things of God, that can be different. God will not allow wickedness to prosper. But we're talking about Job's situation now while he's on earth. And so that is not accurate to apply to Job. All right. 21. He says, a dreadful sound is in his ears. In prosperity, the destroyer shall come upon him. So he's saying that you can't enjoy prosperity because you're hearing that you have a dreadful sound. In other words, your conscience is talking to you and bothering you, and you can't enjoy prosperity if you're wicked. Well, I know we can talk about different people that are corrupt, and they sleep good at night. Their conscience is not bothering them. They don't have no issues with feeling bad and enjoying their wickedness. So they're not having that dreadful sound in their head. But from Eliphaz's point of view, he feels that's the way it is. But that doesn't mean it is. All right. Look at verse 22. He believes not that he shall return out of darkness, and that he is waited for of the sword. So what he's saying is that Eliphaz feels that a wicked person knows he's in darkness, and he feels that right around the corner is the sword. Now what that means is he's walking in things where he has to continue to snoop and move about very carefully. That's how you have to move around in darkness. You just can't walk all free in darkness because you may bump into something. And he also is saying that when you have this, you walk around knowing that you have that sword around you. That sword means somebody may come out to try to grab you and get you because you've done somebody wrong. And you may end up, getting cut down. All right? And that's an important aspect as well. When you're doing wrong, you feel like somebody's out to get you. I'm going to get shot or I'm going to get stabbed because I've done somebody else's wrong. Well, Eliphaz is saying this is how people feel that they deal with this. But once again, not everybody feels this way that does wrong. All right. Trouble and anguish shall make him afraid. They shall prevail against him as a king ready for battle. Right? So that's pretty self-explanatory. Once again, the same thing. You're going to have trouble. You're going to have anguish when you do corrupt. And so why is he saying all of this? He's telling Job, I know this is how you're feeling. You're feeling like you can't move like you want to move. You feel like you're moving in darkness. You're worried about, once in a while somebody's going to come out with a sword and just cut you down because of what you did. You know that your days are full of darkness and you're wandering about, not seeking and not having proper bread. All these things, he's saying, Job, this is what you're feeling. Job is not feeling that. Job is just confused, trying to understand. He didn't get the backstory as to why God let this happen to him. Neither did Eliphaz and Bildad and Zophar. But they're trying to explain it. This is just, once again, and you can see how redundant this is. Chapter after chapter. Each time we go through this, it's just the same stuff. And this is what happens when man tries to explain the things of God. You keep walking about in circles. What's that old song by Billy Preston? There we go, around in circles. And that's what's going on. You're just going around in circles, little by little, just keep on rehashing the same old stuff. And that's all they're doing. That's why a lot of times people don't like going through this book of Job. Because it seems like, well, can we ever get out of this particular type of conversation? No, not as long as they're talking. Well, bring that to us. How much redundant stuff do we say that didn't make no sense last week? It didn't make any sense yesterday. It don't make any sense today, and it won't make any sense tomorrow. We keep rehashing the same stuff. Can we learn that? Okay, let me just recognize that don't work. Make a change, make an adjustment, and I need God to give me power to do that. Because it's hard to change against your own heart. Because the reason why you're thinking and saying the things that you say and the way that you think is because that's how you are. And that's how I am. So, if I can recognize that, I got this problem where I keep doing this and I keep ending up saying and acting the same old way. I need to change. Now, just because I say I need to change does not mean change happens. Because what do you need to change? The strength, the power, and the wisdom to do it, which only comes from God. All right? You're not going to do it because you want to do it. You're going to need God's help to do it. All right? And then you can begin to repent and make changes about yourself. Alright, so he talks about the trouble and anguish, and you're like a king ready to go to battle, all nervous and concerned. 25. For he stretches out his hand against God and strengtheneth himself against the Almighty. Alright, so somebody that's like a king going forth to battle, but you're going forth to battle God. Now, what he's telling Job, it makes sense. Job, you should be worried and concerned and anxious if you think you're going to fight against God. Well, no, nobody can do that. But is that what Job is doing? Is it what he's actually doing? Job is just confused. Now, there's nothing wrong with being confused when you are. But what you need to do is admit, I don't know what's happening. I don't know is such a good response to things when that's a true response. I do not know. And that should be something our kids should practice. They should have a class called Learn How to Say, I don't know. Just, I don't understand it, I don't get it, and that at least puts you in the right place to learn. Because you need to learn what you don't know. But if you don't think you don't know something, guess what? You're not going to go try to learn it. Why would you learn something that you think you already know? You won't. So, if you want to get more understanding, you got to admit first what you don't know. Now you've opened the door for learning to happen. All right. He runneth upon him, even on his neck, upon the thick boss of the buckler. So he's just saying it runs all through your body, through your muscles, through your strength. Everything, when you feel and act like this, it's going to affect your whole being. You're going to feel it in your actions physically, your body, your thinking, your movement, all of it will react to this fight that you feel you must do against God. Now, keeping in mind, this is Eliphaz's accusation. about it. Doesn't mean that it's happening. 27. Because thou covereth thy face with his fatness, and marketh collops of fat on his flanks. So basically what he's saying is you're filling yourself up. And when it speaks of fatness, it talks about fulfilling yourself with the goods of the earth. In other words, sometimes we talk about I'm going to feed off the fat of the land. I'm going to enjoy the fat of the area, and that speaks about the abundance, the feeling of having more than enough. 'Cause that's kind of like what fat's about. Your body will store fat when it has enough nutrients to already give you the energy to walk, move, talk, think. So it takes the rest of that and it stores it. So that's fat represents abundance. So when we're on earth and we're doing stuff and we're just trying to live in abundance, all right, and this worldly, just trying to get full of all the things of the world that the world can have and can offer. Well, that's something that we should not always be trying to obtain. We should not always be trying to obtain the fullness and the fatness of this world. We should be trying to obtain God, obtain the Lord. All right. And so sometimes we want to have so much of the world so we can say, well, I got so much of the things in the world, I don't need nothing else. Well, that's not what the psalmist said. The psalmist said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Some people want to say that lottery ticket is what I needed so that I don't have to want anymore. And they chase and dream after that. So we have to be careful to make sure that our hope and our feeling of fullness is not in the world, but our feeling of fullness and fatness is in the things of God. Am I full of the things of the Lord that makes me feel and have the mindset that I have abundance and I have enough? All right? Because when you have enough, you don't want. And that's what David said. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. All right? Look at 28. He that dwelleth in desolate cities and in houses which no man inhabit, which are ready to become heaps. All right. So once again, places where there was definitely effort to build. It takes time to build a city. It takes effort to build a house, but you don't get to enjoy any of it. You got the city built, but you can't enjoy the infrastructure of the metropolis. You got a house, but you can't enjoy any of the shelter that it provides. It's empty. All right, and so he says that it becomes just a heap. So you're doing a lot of action, and that's what he's saying about Job. Job, you built a whole lot of things of your personal character that was like a person who built a city. But look at you now, Job. You're not enjoying any of the infrastructure of the building and the things that you produced. You can't utilize any of it. Look at your condition now, sitting here all hurt, broke, and sick. Well, that doesn't make it true. Because it's what we are doing in the things of God. And God is using Job in this brokenness that they just can't see because they don't know the backstory. They don't have the spiritual point of view. They only got the historical and their own points of view. All right. 29. He shall not be rich, neither shall his substance continue, neither shall he prolong the perfection thereof upon the earth. So once again, Eliphaz is telling Job, you used to be rich, but you're not now. You used to have substance, but you don't now. You see how he's pointing this out. So this is his evidence to point to Job why what he's saying is true. My evidence, Job, is I'm telling you that's why you were doing well, but you're not doing well now. So he's using Job's obvious, true transformation that happened. He had health, he had wealth, he had children. Now he has none of those things. So Eliphaz is saying that's why you don't have any of this. All right? You don't have your riches, you don't have your substance anymore, and you're not walking, you're not being prolonged in the perfection. You had what people would consider, wow, Job got the perfect life. Health, strength, wealth, family, everything. But now he doesn't. And so Eliphaz is pointing out that this is what the reason why you don't have it is because of the things I'm telling you of. That you've got iniquity in your words, you got iniquity in your heart, your eyes are winking at things that you shouldn't be winking at. All of that, which he's saying, he's now trying to prove that to Eliphaz. All right. What was that? It was about 30.
30.
He shall not depart out of darkness. So he's letting Job know, you're going to stay where you are. Well, we know that's not true. Job is coming out of this. Right? And sometimes it can seem like that with you or with me. You could be in something that look like, am I ever going to come out of this? And people around you be like, no, you ain't coming out. It ain't happening. You're going to stay in that situation. Well, wait till you hear what God's got to say about it. Because God can move you out of that situation. All right? And that's something that we should always keep in mind. The flame shall dry up his branches, and by the breath of his mouth shall he go away. So he's just saying that, just more colorful words in saying that you're not going to come out of your circumstance. Basically, what he's saying is, Job, you're going to die, a broken man, Job. You're going to get burnt up, and you're going to breathe your last breath in this poor, pitiful state that you're in. Well, we know that's not true. 31. Let not him that is deceived trust in vanity. Well, very true statement, but how does that apply to Job? All right. Is Job thinking he's better than others? Job's conversation has not been perfect either. But one thing we can say about Job, Job has just looked at the situation where he's trying to say, I have not done anything that I feel makes me deserving of this. Now, just being born means that we are candidates for the consequences of sin. Just because we're born. Some people say, well, what did I do to deserve this? Being born. Just being born in sin makes me a candidate for any and everything. So what that means is, when I don't get everything going wrong every day, all the time, the grace of God is abundantly showering upon me. The goodness of the Lord I see every day, because I don't have bad things happen all the time, every day, all the days of my life. What Job is experiencing here is kind of like what would happen if God just removed his mercy and grace and allowed the devil to do what he wanted to do, which is what sin is supposed to allow to happen. So what you kind of get is, Job is getting, for this brief period of time, what we kind of really should be experiencing every day. But we don't. Why? Because God has a hedge of mercy and a hedge of forgiveness and grace around us. And he only allows certain things to come in. So we are protected more than we are attacked. But we forget it because, we get to the point, the minute we get attacked once, you can have, it's just 30 days in a month, you can have 29 wonderful days. But wait till that 30th day comes when things are just not going well, man, are you upset. I can speak from experience about that. Just dealing with sometimes with things on my job. And I'm like, my goodness. And then I have to come to my senses and be like, wait a minute. I got this. I can do this. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm hired. This is why I'm part of it. This is what I do. And you got to get out of the frustration because, you got to recognize, okay, let me just move forward. Things can be good. But when the bad things come, we don't think we deserve to have to deal with it. But guess what? If you born in sin, shaped in iniquity, bad things are supposed to happen. That's what is the atmosphere of sin, of iniquity, that we are born in. But we thank God for the oxygen of his goodness and his mercy that sometimes we can breathe from day to day. All right? 32. It shall be accomplished before his time, and his branch shall not be green. Does he got anything nice to say to Job? He has nothing nice to say to this guy. He's like, your branches are going to be burnt and dry. Nothing. No way that you look at anything are you going to have any hope. He is making sure that Job understands from his point of view, Job, you are rotten, man. You are just, and you're now, the rottenness that's in you is starting to come out. That's how Eliphaz is perceiving Job. We go all the way back to the first chapter of this book. God said that Job was a righteous man, and there was none like him. That's what God said. In comparison from what God said, look at what Eliphaz is saying to him. You know, all this stuff, your words are bad, you're a windbag, you're walking in darkness, you got iniquity, your heart is bad, your eyes are winking at stuff that you shouldn't be looking, you're not going to have any prosperity, you're like a king that's about to go to war knowing he's going to lose, all this worry and anxious and stuff, and you got vanity going on, and you're thinking that you're going to have green days and you're going to dry up like a withered branch. Wow. Is he trying to tell Job off or what? Look at 33. He shall shake off his unripe grapes. So you're like unripe grapes. Unripe grapes are not supposed to fall off. They're supposed to what? Stay on the vine until they what? Till they ripen. Eliphaz is saying, nope, that's not what's going to happen with Job. He's saying you're going to shake off. In other words, you're going to drop your unripe grapes as the wine, and shall cast off the flower as an olive. So you're not going to get any good wine because your grapes are going to fall before they're supposed to. In other words, things are not going to work the way they're supposed to work, Job. You're not going to get the right order. Things are going to happen incorrectly. They're going to happen backwards, and you're not going to see the when you watch a plant grow. Eventually you're thinking, okay, towards the spring and the summer, the plant's going to produce a flower. Well, no, it's not going to happen, Job. You're not going to see that good day. So once again, Eliphaz is saying to Job, you're going to die in this broken, horrible state you're in because of your heart and the way you are. You are a corrupt person, Job, and it's finally come out. Eliphaz is just hitting him hard here. All right. It's very colorful, but it's still mean. It's very mean. Now, can we be like that when we start arguing with our friends and our co-workers? And can we be mean like that when we're arguing with our brothers and our sisters and our families and our neighbors? Can we get mean like this?
Absolutely.
Wait.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, we can. Well, we can.
I'm right there with you, bro.
We can get mean, can't we?
Yeah, that's where I was last night.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Because the power went out last night, yesterday afternoon at 2:30. So, everybody asks me, do we have lights? I'm telling them, I ain't got no lights, you ain't got no lights.
Yeah.
So, and I come to find out that I'm the only one calling Contact. I'm the only one calling Central Hudson. So, I call them, I go to the automatic thing, I go to the voicemail thing, I put my phone number in, and it said it don't work. So I said to myself, I said I was going to call the office. Now they tell me, no, we don't call Contact, you do. I said, but I pay you my rent.
Yep.
So they tell me, no, that's not the way it goes. So I keep calling, so I finally get through. And they say, okay, give me your phone number. They said, that's not a good number. They said, give me an account. I said, I don't have no account. They said, well, who paid the bill? I said, Beacon Island. They said, well, they should be calling. So, I'm just kidding. I got into it with Haywood last night.
Yep.
I told them I was going to curse these people out today.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I finally got through at 12 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
They said, well, thanks for calling. We didn't know y'all had no power.
Wow, look at that. Yeah.
No, because I spoke to somebody.
Yep, exactly. You got somebody's ear.
I was going to call the office today. I was going to curse them out, but I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I said, I'm not doing it till Friday till when I'm calm.
Yeah.
But I got to tell them, we shouldn't have to call them because when they tell you to give me your account number, you don't have one.
Right.
Yeah.
So I gave them the phone. One of my neighbors said, well, try to, Beacon Island Authority's phone number. It went right through.
Right.
And that's what they said, well, now I need your account number.
Yeah.
Can't give it to you. And then they said, well, do you want me to call you back? You can't call me back. It's the office number.
That's the office, exactly. So you was just going around in circles. So yes, you were You were definitely getting the cast around, and when that happens in life, that's when our nature starts to kick up. Because see, we all can be like that. What Eliphaz is explaining, he's talking about the nature that he recognizes that he's seen in human beings. That's how we can be. Yes, we can be like that. And he is hitting Job and telling Job, I know you can be like that. But you know what? Something is interesting. When Eliphaz is telling Job, I know you can be like this, and he's giving him all the different reasons why he is like this. Guess what he's also what he's also saying? I know I'm like this sometimes too, because you can speak very eloquently about some stuff that people do when you know you do it.
Right. But they don't see the three of them. They just don't see how confused Job is.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
That's true.
That's the whole thing. They just don't see it.
Yeah. Well, guess what? He ain't done. He's got a couple more choice words for Job.
I know. I know you do, because that's the way we are.
That's the way we are, exactly. So look at what he says to him in verse 34. It says, "For the congregation of the hypocrites shall be desolate." So what he's saying, Job, you are what? A hypocrite. A hypocrite is what? Somebody that looks one way but actually is another. And so he's saying, Job, you look like you were fine and doing good, and you were a nice guy, and you were, a helpful individual, but your true self was wicked and hateful and deceitful. Now, Job was not that. And we know that God said that Job was not that. But from Eliphaz's point of view, he feels, Job, that has to be what's happening. Because why else would you be going through this if you weren't a rotten, corrupt, hypocritical person? So he's trying to justify it. He's trying to make the math equal properly so he can maintain his godly theology that is incorrect.
Right.
All right. And so he says, you're a hypocrite and shall be desolate, and fire shall consume the tabernacle of bribery. So he's saying that not only are you a hypocrite, but you've been getting kickbacks. You've been getting money under the table. You've been fleecing people financially. You've been trying to find ways to get ahead. The Bible talks about the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. So he's basically saying you've been loving money to the point where you've been doing some shifty and some deceitful stuff. Eliphaz is calling Job everything, but a son of God here. Look at 35. They conceive mischief and bring forth vanity. So mischief, once again, is that kind of manipulative aspect. Remember earlier on he called them what? Crafty. All right, and so he's back to that same kind of thinking. You kind of make sure that you look like you're doing one thing, but you're doing another. You got mischief going on, manipulating things. That mischief kind of relates to things like manipulation, which also relates to witchcraft, manipulating situations. So he's calling them all of that, and bringing forth vanity, doing things that actually have no godly value. A lot of activity, a lot of action, but no godly value. The Bible talks about people that have a form of godliness, but have denied the power thereof. And their belly perceiveth deceit. So your hunger, the things that you are eating up and hungering for, and what's the word I'm looking for? And devouring, that's the word. The things that you are devouring is nothing but deceit. And so you're devouring, you're eating up, and you're consuming deceitful things, deceitful actions. And so Eliphaz's whole conversation here is, Job, that's your problem. That's what you're going through, brother. That's why you got all these boils on your body. That's why your children's dead. That's why your wife told you to cuss God and die. That's why all your sheep and cattle and oxen and camels got stolen. This is your problem, Job. And guess what? He's completely what? Wrong. But he thinks he's right. Well, all right. We're going to finish up again on next week. We'll pick up and see what Job's going to say back to him. And you got to stick with us here. This tennis match of the ball being hit back and forth is going to keep going for a while.
Yes, it is.
All right, and like I said, this book of Job isn't full of excitement. What this is you sitting up, you're like a fly on the wall and looking in on a big old family argument, and just watching these guys go back and forth, and they ain't finished. But eventually, somebody gonna knock on the door called God. He's gonna knock on the door and say, "Let me in, and let me tell y'all why this whole argument, all this conversation that y'all having, is useless because you don't understand what you're talking about." But we haven't got to that point yet. We still got some more debating and some more conversations to go forth before we get to that point. All right, we're going to stop here. We thank God for what we have gained in this portion here, and Lord willing, on next week we'll get some further. Just want to remind you that on